Once again, good morning, everybody. It's so great to see you. Before we begin, I do want to let everyone know that we are recording this session in case there are some people that were not able to attend. We will have a link so that people can come back later to review it, or if somebody would just like to review some of the content that will be available to you. I'm Dr. Breggy, your superintendent, and I'm very happy to be here this morning to do 3 different town halls, starting with our high school. And I am joined by Principal Mark Mead, who is going to assist in the presentation.
Good morning.
And we do have a lot of information for you. We also would like to hear from you as well. We are going to start with some information, and I realize, and I want to start with a disclaimer that we have provided a lot of information, and in many times it's complicated and it's somewhat confusing. And so it's important for us before we get to the actual town hall portion is to provide you with how did we get to where we are today, just a succinct version of how we got to where we are today, where we are now, and where we're going. And once we are finished and we've provided kind of that foundation of information for everybody, we will then open this up for some questions, and it will be moderated through Ms. Starkins, who is our Director of Public Relations. So again, thank you for being here. I absolutely understand that there is a lot of information fatigue that's happening. And again, we continue to ask more from our students, from our staff and our parents, and the heroic actions to keep us moving along almost 1 year to the date of the pandemic. And so I want to thank you very much for being here today so that we can update you on where we're at. I'm going to share my screen with you. Please let me know if you are not able to see it. I want to go ahead and start with just, again, how did we get here? And if you think back, even just back to August, after a very tumultuous spring semester, the state of California came out with a plan that was the blueprint for a safer economy. And then there was a schools version that went along with also the business side of this plan. And so there was a color-coded system that was presented to us. And you can see that on the left-hand side where we had the purple tier and the red tier. What is not pictured, because it really doesn't factor into our scenario, is the orange tier and the yellow tier. So we're just kind of focusing on those tiers. And that was presented to us as school district leaders throughout the entire state. These metrics, which are based on the adjusted case rate and also the testing positivity rate. This has been the consistent measure that the state has used since August. This is a system where everybody in the state was told, as far as school leaders, this is the information that we will measure a safe reopening for our schools. And so we were again told, learn this system, educate yourself and your stakeholders with this system, and use this system when you're working with your unions and your labor partners. And so we did just that. We followed this system. You've seen this system. We've shared this system in videos and PTA meetings and in board meetings. And we believed in this system as the state believed in this system. And so this system provides the conditions on when it's safe to open up our schools. And so the adjusted case rate, as you can see on the left, the number for being in the purple zone is above 7 adjusted case rate. And the red tier was the definition of when it's safe to reopen your schools. And so this is the system that we used. And so movement within the system is all based on the adjusted case rate in your county. And obviously schools could reopen when you were in the red tier for 14 days. And so that's been the system. That's the system we were told to use, and we did. In fact, for this graphic is almost a replica of what the state's metrics are. And so as we were told, we used that system to then negotiate with our labor partners and our unions. And so if you can see on the left, you can see that it's almost identical to the system that the state used, that we believed in, that we educated ourselves in, and the ones that we shared with you. The only difference is that when we were in the negotiation period before the end of the year, before the end of the calendar year, is that we had an opportunity for a TK2 waiver. And so we made some adjustments with our union here. And instead of waiting to the red tier, we said that we would return our youngest learners at an average case rate of 10, and also for specialized services for special education. And so that's the only difference, is that the TK2 waiver and specialized services waiver came available. Other than that, you can see we have followed exactly what the state has put out. And so here they are kind of side by side. So you can see that we were very consistent. We were very good soldiers, so to speak. We did exactly what we were asked to do. Then in January, without any warning or very much input from superintendents in LA County, our governor presented a brand new plan, which essentially changed the definition of when it's safe to reopen a school. And so in his new plan, the range now is going from TK to 6. And his proposal is that reopening at an adjusted case rate of 25. As you can see from the state on the left, you can see that it is where we used to be in the red tier to reopen schools, that now the definition of safe has changed to more than 3 times what the 7.0 is for getting into the red tier. So now, 25 is in the governor's proposal. And so that was a change that happened without warning. And so while we looked at that and we looked at all of the need and understand the need from our students, what we've asked as superintendents is, okay, we see that that's new and that we weren't aware that that was coming, but can you now help us understand why you've picked 25 and what's the reasoning behind 25? It was at 28 for a couple of days, then it changed to 25. And now it seems to be in negotiation as the governor's plan has not been approved by the legislature. So just want to share that with you, that that's something that has recently come about in this plan that has not been finalized yet, and want to share that with you. I also want to point out, I know this is for high school, but I just want to point out to you as well that some school districts have 6th grade in a self-contained setting. And so what that means is that you're still able to keep one cohort, one group of kids, 12 kids. We are not able to do that. Our 6th grade is part of our middle school campus. So as far as BHUSD goes, this is something I'll say later in the middle school presentation, really Governor Newsom's plan is a TK5 plan for us. The state and county at this point is remaining silent on high schools and middle schools as far as their overall plan. So they have not weighed in on what that will look like. Currently, the definition of a cohort is 12 students. And so that doesn't work in the definitions that are out there for the cohorts intermingling with other cohorts. Right now, it's 12 students and they stay together with their teacher and they cannot mix into another cohort. And that's where it is now. Of course, that will change, but we're waiting for that change. So just quickly, and a lot of you know this already, is just a quick hierarchy. So, we wait for the state of California, and they create statewide orders, and the jurisdictions all follow in suit. And so the County of Los Angeles then, now they can rely on the state orders. Well, they have to rely on the state orders, but they can establish more restrictive protocols. So they can't be looser than the state, but they can be more restrictive. And as you know, if you've been following along for a while, LA County has always been more restrictive than the state. We have one of the most restrictive counties in the entire country. And if you wanted to go further, if I wanted to put another arrow there, even the city of Beverly Hills, and many of you will know, as an example, they actually went a little further than the county when the city required residents to wear masks. So again, you can see the hierarchy. You can see that you can be more restrictive. You just can't be less restrictive than the hierarchy above. And so what we're waiting for now, the state came out with its plan. I just shared that with you. And it's receiving, there's a lot of controversy revolving around like every component of the plan, and it has not been supported by the legislature. And it's still in negotiations with many people in our school districts. But one thing I want to show you is, and the most important thing is that the state comes out with a plan, and as this model indicates, then the County of LA, the Department of Public Health, they come out with their orders. And so that they come in usually a week or 2 weeks afterwards. And so we just do not have that information right now from the state. So again, or from the county. So the county can be more restrictive. So we have the state plan, but the county has not weighed in. Are they going to be more restrictive than what the state is saying? And so that's one of the things that we're waiting for. And as you can see at the bottom, usually these updates come every week to 10 days. We've not received an update from the LA County Department of Public Health since December 28th, before the plan. So we're still waiting for that plan. And so I want you to be aware that we have to follow the County of Los Angeles plan. And we do not know if they're going to support the state of California plan, or will they be more restrictive like they have in the past? We're still waiting for that information. I'm not going to go, this is really more for our elementary town hall that we're going to have, but I just want you to show some of the struggles that we have. I feel like I have two jobs, superintendent of Beverly Hills Unified School District, and then I have the COVID-19 superintendent job, which is an everyday change. It's a full-time job to look at this COVID information. And I just want to give you an example. So the state says that your TK through 2 waiver, which we applied for, they said, you know what, no more waivers. We're going to go with the less than 25 adjusted case rate, no more waivers. And so that's what superintendents think for weeks. We tell people, there's no more waivers, we're not going to open. And then just last Thursday and Friday, the county says, oh, wait a second. No, we think that we're going to uphold those. We think that you can keep those waivers, the TK through 2 waivers. And of course, that was an uproar. So this is an email that I got just in full transparency. Here I am at the point now showing you emails, but it is an email that I got just this last Friday at 5 o'clock that essentially says, we understand what the state told you. However, we don't agree with it. And not only do we not agree with it, we've told the state that. And now the state says, all right, maybe we should relook at this. Let's have a process in place for those people that did get the TK through 2 waiver. And then they agree. Okay, well, let's come up with a process. Well, what should it be? Well, they don't know yet. And so I just want you to see, this is just a transparent example of what happens in a pandemic when there are so many people involved, the state and the county. And so I just want to share that with you, that this is an ongoing battle for superintendents trying to stay on top of the information, trying to report out accurately what the information is. And it becomes really difficult when the state and the county are not aligned. So what's next? Where are we going? We're waiting for the LA County Department of Health. We cannot do anything without their guidance because, again, they can be more restrictive. And so we have to be careful. So we are waiting for that information. I have had several outreach attempts to find out when that update is coming. And again, the last time we had an update was at the end of December. That was before the holiday surge. From the beginning, and I'm proud of this, that we work with administrators and our teachers, our Board of Education. We don't admire the problem. We know that there's many factors involved in slowing the transmission of COVID-19. Not just one, there's several. And I'm fortunate to work with a team that realizes that that there are many components to bring down the case rate in LA County. And one of them is now that vaccines are available. And so we want to be part of the solution. And we all should want to do that because the sooner our conditions in our community improve, the sooner we open up our schools. And so I made a comment in a communication recently about offering our school sites if there was vaccine so that were available, that we could put the vaccines in the arms of our educators and our community. As you know, and if you've seen the news, it is very difficult to find a supply. In no way was this in place of opening a school. When it's safe to open up our schools, we're going to open up our schools. We are not putting a vaccine center in place of opening up our schools. But right now, our schools are closed for in-person learning. And so it makes sense to be able to provide that environment, whether it's outside and through parking lots and we're doing this in cars. We want to be part of the solution. We want to be able to, if there's supply, be able to provide this for our educators. So as you know in the news, and you've heard this, and hopefully things will be changing soon, but we haven't finished Tier 1A yet, which is our healthcare workers, people over 65 years of age, and also people living in residential living. We're still trying to find enough vaccine to give to people in 1A. The county is being optimistic that educators are next in Tier 1B, and the hope is that is established this month. But again, all of this will depend on the supply. The other thing is we have very good relationships with our labor partners. And so we are going to continue the conversation. As soon as we know what LA County, what their position is with Governor Newsom's plan, we are continuing the conversation with our labor partners to say, hey, this is where we're at. Let's have a conversation about how the plans are changing and how case rates are going down and prepare for that reopening. Our assessment, our tier assessment is assessed every Tuesday. And so we have really made some progress here. So we have gone from 75.3, and as you can see down here to the adjusted case rate, this is last Tuesday, we were at 48.2. So that's a 27.1 drop in the adjusted case rate in 1 week. And so that gives us hope. Later today, they will come up with a new revised adjusted case rate because it's Tuesday. And so we look forward to that, and we hope that cases continue to drop as quickly as they went up with the holiday surge. And that is not only what we're hoping, but that's what we are expecting. And we're very optimistic about that happening to move forward. And so now I think it's important to just kind of give you an update from the principal leadership level, and Mr. Mead will tell you a little bit about what school is going to look like when we return. Mr. Mead?
Yep, thank you. So it's actually not going to be very different in terms of times than what students are experiencing now. You'll notice we still start at 8. We're still done, a little bit after 3. One thing you will notice is instead of 90-minute periods, they're 85 minutes, which gives us a 1-hour lunch, which is kind of nice. I don't think anybody's going to be too sad about an extra 15, 20 minutes of lunch. But the main reason there is also to give us time to do some cleaning of classrooms. You'll notice the typical student will usually have about 3 periods in a day, which means they'll transition twice, once between period 1 and between period 2 and 3. So the daily schedule that your student has gotten used to will remain very stable. One interesting thing is that Wednesdays, we will still have live instruction, but it will not be on campus for a deep cleaning. So your student would either have a Monday and Tuesday on campus and a Thursday and Friday virtual, with obviously Wednesday also being virtual, or the opposite. So one of the things we're going to have to figure out when we start coming back is, are there some families for any particular reason who have to have Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday? I don't know to what degree we're going to be able to meet all those needs, but that will be one of the challenges that we'll face. And it's not insurmountable by any means, is by creating these cohorts. Who's in the Monday, Tuesday cohort, who's in the Thursday, Friday cohort. But like I said, Wednesdays will be all virtual, almost identical to what students are experiencing now. So we feel like this is very manageable. We've kept the campus ready to go. We have our thermal temperature readers and a way for students to come on and off campus and get those temperatures. We have signage, we have cleaning protocols. So we're feeling ready to go. As Dr. Breggy just explained, there are a lot of variables that are confusing. And the good news is, from my end, I don't need to understand all of those. I just need to be ready to bring your kids back as safely as possible. And we feel like we're there. So the schedule itself, a little bit different, but not much. We're going to have a 10-day period according to the MOU of kind of like a heads up, we're coming back. That's plenty of time for us to get ready. So when we do come back, we feel like our teachers are ready to go. One other thing, you might be wondering what it's going to look like if you have half the kids on campus and half the kids at home. Well, a lot of these strategies that your students are experiencing now will be the same when we come back. There would be differences, of course, and we're excited about those. But, teachers will be interacting with both the kids in the class and the kids at home in very similar ways, assessing student learning using very similar types of computer-based methods. One of the differences, though, would be the experiential learning that's happening in the classroom, the assessing that's happening in the classroom. That is something that I think will be different. In a lot of ways will be better. So we feel like our teachers are ready to kind of continue this hybrid model using a lot of the skills and techniques they're currently using. So there would be different learning experiences. Like if you're in a lab class, there might be opportunities to actually physically do that lab. And, our teachers will have to negotiate, well, what do I do with the kids who are at home? We know that it's going to be possible. We've been thinking about it. But long story short, the schedule would remain similar, and your student would simply come Monday and Tuesday or Thursday and Friday every week and see every one of his or her teachers on those 2 days. Next slide, please. Oh, I think we're done.
That's it.
So yeah, go ahead.
Can I just add one thing? So also, because some things have to change before we get here, as you know, and that is where the county has been silent on, but I know they're working on it, is that right now that definition of a cohort is 12. And so we know that will change. We think that might meet the state. It might be, we believe that will be bumped up to 15. And I just want to say we're in a very fortunate spot because we are in a place where we had the ILC, as a choice. And so I want you to think about, as we have several hundred students in the ILC, if there are some school districts that do not have an ILC, and Santa Monica, Malibu is one of them. If without having that, I just want you to look at how much different this schedule may be. So if we had students that we were counting as coming back into the classroom, and let's say it is 15, think about, and you can ask your children this, how many classes do they have that are more than 30? So that's cohort 1, cohort 2. So that's 30 students. We have several classes at the high school and the middle school that are over 30. Another version of this schedule, just so that you're aware, was 3 cohorts, which means you would have one cohort. Students wouldn't be going, the once per week, and then the second cohort going that, in that final week. We would be having to squeeze a third cohort in here. So if you look at a schedule like this, that third cohort would be Monday, Tuesday. So then you would move, like cohort 1 wouldn't come back until Thursday, Friday. So I just want you to see how that would have changed. So we're very fortunate that we were forward thinking with our ILC model, because that took several hundred kids, so that we believe that this model will be the one that will be in place. We do believe that they will bump that cohort up to 15, and they will limit the number of changes of classes though. So we're in a fortunate position, as Mr. Mead just pointed out, because this does lessen the amount of contact students have with teachers and with other students. So I just wanted to point that out. And thank you, Mr. Mead, for sharing that information. So let me stop sharing that information with you. And we are going to go into our next portion of our town hall. Again, I want you to be aware that the this meeting's being recorded. So if you, again, want to keep your camera off, that's fine. Let's see. This is some of the directions for this portion. So you will indicate your question in the chat. If you would prefer the moderator to read it for you. You will still read, and no anonymous questions will be taken. Rebecca Starkins, our Director for Public Relations, she will be our moderator, and we want to respect the time allocated to this meeting, and we want to finish on time. So if everybody could please mute your microphone unless you've been asked to unmute it. You will be asked to enter your question into the chat box. Your question will not be public. It will go directly to the moderator, and then you will be called on to unmute yourself, and then you can ask the question and then mute yourself again. If you have a follow-up question, please enter it back into the chat box. To be upfront, please, if there are any individual questions, specific questions about your individual child, then we do ask that you just send an email directly to the administrator, because there's so many people in the room. We want to respect your privacy and the responses to your privacy. And then please be aware that everything that we share is contingent on the information from the what we have up until what I just shared with you today. And any new updates on that information, we will continue to share with you. So this is our favorite part, to be able to hear from you and to listen to your questions. So we will ask that you, I know some people are already starting to put questions into the chat box, and then Ms. Starkins will facilitate this portion of the meeting.
Good morning, everyone. Our first question comes from Marnie. Marnie, would you please go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question? I ask that Dr. Breggy please answer this question.
Hi, everybody. Sorry, I'm not on camera. Hi, Dr. Breggy.
Hi,
hi, guys. Just quickly, so many chats, so many questions from parents wanting to storm the castle of the governor and the mayor and the LA supervisors. So is there any way you could let parents know how, in a kind, positive way, they can help, who they should write into, how they can help support what you guys are doing on a higher level, as you just showed the chart, that so much comes from the county and the supervisors? That would be awesome. Thank you.
Marnie, thank you so much for your question, and I always appreciate the way that you ask your questions. At this point, I would say, I took a risk by sharing a lot of that information with you, but I'm not trying to throw them under the bus, but I'm going to just be really honest with you about how complicated it is to manage this information. So I would ask that you hang tight for this week. We have been told that information would be available last Friday. We believe that they might be working on the middle school and high school part of the plan, which they've said nothing about. So we'd like to give them some additional days this week to update us. So I don't think that it would be helpful at this point to storm them. Even if, let me put it to you this way, even if the governor's plan, let's say that the county supports the plan, and it's less than 25 as an adjusted case rate. And let's, right now, let's just say that they may be more restrictive than that, but let's just say that they agree with the state. We still can't go back anyway right now. So that's why I would say, just wait. Our adjusted case rate, as I just showed you, was at 45.3. So let's see what it is today. We're very hopeful that, cases are going to go down as quickly as they went up. And so, the holiday surge is over. So we're very excited about that trend. So I would say, before storming any castle, let's see what that is today, because storming the castle right now isn't going to do anything to bring us back any sooner right now. I will let you know. I will do the call to action, I promise. But I would absolutely just say, let's give this week and let's find out the new adjusted case rate. Because like I said, even if it's 25 or below, we can't go back right now anyway. So let's not storm the castle yet. We are pushing every day, every single day I call. When I call, it's, hi, this is Michael. That's how often I call. And so I will let you know. I'll put out the call to action if I need some help. They said last Friday. Okay, we're going to see what they'll bring us this week.
Thank you. Our next
Thank you so
question
much.
comes from Michelle Saraf. Michelle Saraf, will you please go ahead and unmute your microphone? And this question will be for Mr. Mead in relation to cohorting.
Sorry about that. I actually had my daughter sitting with me and wanted to know just how the cohorts were going to be decided, just based on, the A, B, and that was my question.
And it's a good one. We're actually strategizing about that as we speak. We just had a meeting with our Aries information system support. Like, what's it going to look like if mid-year we're all of a sudden building cohorts? So from a technical standpoint, we understand what it's going to take, and it's doable. It's going to take us a little bit of time, because you can't just equally divide classes and press go. It's going to be an effort, but it is doable. Obviously not at the 12 rate, as Dr. Breggy just explained, but we think we could do 15. What we're thinking about doing right now is reaching out to families and asking if for some reason a Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday is absolutely necessary for your family. We're hoping that most people are going to say it's kind of the same. We will take family needs into consideration, but it is going to be, and we're going to pay attention to addresses, imagining that there are some students who may have different last names living in the same house. So like, we're going to want addresses to have the same cohort for obvious reasons. Most of the time they're going to want that. So unfortunately, there's not a magic button to just equally divide into cohorts. It's going to be a labor intensive process. We're going to need our counselors on board, but we're already getting ahead of it now. And we are actually planning to have a kind of questionnaire sent to parents Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, or don't care. And we're really hoping for a lot of don't cares, as long as our kids are together. What we wouldn't want is, kids calling their friends and trying to make sure they're all in the same cohort. So that's going to be obviously less of a priority. So we're going to work through it. Long story short, I think it's going to ultimately be random, and then we'll work with families who have a particular need.
Thank you so much. Our next question comes from Deborah Topolo. She's asked that I read her question. What if there are families who are not comfortable sending students back into school at this time? Can they stay virtual full time? Mr. Mead, go ahead, and Dr. Breggy, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, that's not going to be a viable option. Here's why. If the learning is half on campus and half online, there are going to almost certainly be assessments and experiential learning models that are happening in there that can't be replicated at home. It's going to be a bit of a challenge for teachers to do a hybrid model, meaning they're going to have half their class in the room, half their class at home, and need to kind of instruct and work with both groups at the same time. To add in a third group on top of that hybrid model will probably be impossible to do. So, you know, families did have an opportunity to choose the ILC if they weren't going to be ready to come back. Our expectation was when they chose to stay involved that when the hybrid came, the students would come back. So I think that's where we are with this right now.
Okay, our next two questions came from Paulette Storm and Linda Carolet. They were also about that exact same question. So if you two could put in the chat if you didn't feel like your question was answered. However, I do feel like Mr. Mead just answered them. Our next question comes from Mani again regarding a question for Mr. Ellis. So Mani, please go ahead and unmute your microphone. Mr. Ellis.
Mr. Ellis. Hi, Mr. Mead. And Rebecca, I love the way you say my name. Yes, I just wanted an update. Mr. Ellis knows I'm an obsessed sports mom of 2 sports senior. So if you could just give us a little update, we'd all love to hear anything maybe positive, going back, some of the local schools, their friends in other districts starting to go back in conditions. So anything, we're listening. Thank you.
And I see he actually just dropped off the Zoom. Mr. Mead, do you want to jump in, please?
Yeah, I'll do my best. So from what I understand, we are continuing to meet in cohorts for kind of distance practice. As far as I know, that model is the model we're going to keep using in the immediate future. And obviously, we simply wait for some good news like you're asking for, that we can open up a little bit more. I mean, we're really kind of at the mercy of the county right now and, you know, the various tiers and things. So, I mean, we're grateful that the coaches are meeting with the kids, you know, but we're waiting for that next level of opening.
Our next question comes from Nita Micheli, and I apologize if I'm butchering your names. She has asked that I read this and for Dr. Breggy or Mr. Mead to please answer it. Hi, I wanted to know when students will be back to school, even if it is going to be next year after everyone had their vaccines. Still, will students go back to hybrid school? So the question I believe is, even if everything with vaccinations and other things happen, and even if it's next year, will it be in a hybrid situation?
Right now we are, obviously we're trying to plan for all eventualities, but right now we are planning that next year we will be returning to campus, but we're also planning to potentially have that hybrid model, you know, kids in masks 6 feet apart, hopefully 15 per class. We are planning that. We've also figured out how to unplan that and bring everybody back if, you know, circumstances were to allow us to do so. Long story short, we're prepping for everything from continued distance learning to hybrid model to full return. We're ready for all three. We really, like kind of what you said to athletics, we're just waiting for guidance and clearance at this point.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Paulette Storm. Paulette, please go ahead and unmute yourself. It's regarding the ILC switch.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for this meeting, Dr. Bragi, Mr. Mead, Dr. Hunt. If I forgot anybody, please forgive me. But I think this is a great thing, and I'm glad. Thank you, Marnie, for letting us all know that this was going on. What if there's a situation that necessitates for returning to the, or switching to the ILC, I think. Is that a possibility?
It's my understanding that we have reached and maybe even to some degree exceeded the capacity of the ILC and that it is now closed. That's my understanding. So I don't think there are circumstances right now where kids can move. I think that there was the application process for the second semester. And I think at this point, we are beyond capacity.
Okie dokie. Our next question comes from DT. Normally, I wouldn't read a question that didn't have a name attached to it because we did make it clear that we wouldn't be taking anonymous questions. So please make sure. Oh, she's just put her name in. Thank you, Donna Triffman. I apologize. I wasn't aware. Her question is it true that an agreement has been entered with the Labor partners to come back at a case rate of 10 as opposed to 25 case rate delineated by the county? It's for Dr. Breggy. So Dr. Breggy, if you could please answer that question, that would be great.
Yes, no, I'd be happy to. So in the original, in the presentation that we shared back in December, and when we shared this information publicly for the TK through 2 waiver, we did make an agreement that the adjusted case rate for the TK through 2 waiver would be 10 or below. And so we absolutely did do that. At the time when that was established and agreed upon, the case rates were not much higher than that. This is before the surge from the holidays. And so the mark of 10 is still in the widespread purple zone area. And that was an agreement that we made with our teachers that our classrooms would be safe for them to return, and also our students. As I mentioned, our conversations with our labor partners are ongoing, and the information that has been shared from the state is also in conversations with our unions, and those continue this week. So those are ongoing conversations as information changes from the state. We're really waiting for that information for the county. That would be helpful to have right now as we continue to work with our labor partners.
Thank you so much. Our next question, there are 2 questions. I ask you to just please ask your first one and put your second one in the chat so we have a chance to get to everybody. Comes from Howard Goldstein in relation to extending the academic year. Please go ahead and unmute yourself, Mr. Goldstein.
Yes, good morning. Dr. Breggy, are there any discussions to bring forward a plan for a longer 21-22 academic year? And also, will there be any grade level assessment testing to determine which students would benefit from retaking certain courses or even an entire grade level?
Thank you, Mr. Goldstein. Excellent question. So at this point, there haven't been specific conversations about extending the academic year for 21-22. We are at this point doing assessments, designing assessments, looking to see how can we find out where and if those learning gaps occur and how bad are they. We are in the process of doing that. We want to get that information first before we make any decisions about extending the academic calendar or putting in place programming for potentially even this summer to catch those students up. So we are aware that their learning gaps occur. We just need to find out where they are, what is the extent of those before we make any decisions about required summer programming or extensions of the calendar.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Our next question comes from Bahar Yaktafar. It's in relation to a question that potentially Dr. Horvath might like to answer. I see that he's with us, but Dr. Breggy, if you want to take this question also, Bahar, please go ahead and unmute your microphone and ask your question.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My question is, when we do go to the 2 cohort situation, what happens if some of the teachers choose not to come back because of personal health issues, and if they choose not to come back and go on the COVID-19 leave, do we have enough qualified teachers to continue teaching those courses?
So let me jump in first, Dr. Horvath, because it's connected to Donna Triffman's question as well. And you know, to be very transparent with you, this is such an excellent question, Bahar, because this is something that when we went into negotiations, again, we took the model from the state. You know, we took their definition of what is returning and reopening up a safe school. We use that. There is a balance. There's a balance between ensuring that we have a safe environment for our teachers to return. Like any organization, there are many opportunities for leaves. Everybody has a different situation at home. Many people are living with parents and grandparents, staff members. And so there are a lot of opportunities for staff, if they do not feel safe, to take a leave of absence, which is why we've been in such heavy conversations with our labor partners, because our priority is students and bringing students back, but we're also an adult-driven organization. And so your office managers, your custodians that do the cleaning, sanitizing, disinfecting, we need to make sure that we have everybody on board when students return. And so the question that Donna Triffman asked about when you agreed to 10, which was in the widespread tier, that was a lot. We were pushing our teachers into a widespread area, knowing that the case rate was so high. And coming to that agreement this is when teachers feel safe in the classroom, is important, because if we cannot get our credentialed teachers back into the classroom, then we will be using our substitute teacher list. And and this will be not just, normally substitute teacher would be in for a day or two. This would be a long-term substitute position. And these would be people that do not necessarily know the curriculum and need to be able to use the technology. And so we've been fortunate because we've had teachers that have had COVID-19 that have been teaching from home while they have COVID-19 because they're at home. And so we don't have enough substitute teachers that have the technical capability or know the curriculum to take over a full Zoom course. I take that back. We have several that can, but they're being used. And so what you brought up is a great point, because having that conversation and ensuring that everyone's safe is important, because we want our staff to come back. We want our staff to feel as if they are in a safe environment, and there's that balance. We know that by looking at the data, that we haven't had a 14-day period where we haven't had staff COVID-19 cases. In fact, on 2 different occasions, we would have had to close our school district because of the number of COVID-19 positive cases in our school district with staff. And that's representative of the high numbers in LA County. So we do have to find that balance, because you're absolutely right. We put ads in newspapers. We are reaching out. Dr. Horvath has reached out to universities to try to get some people to get on our substitute list, because we have to be ready to be able to fill in places where we don't have somebody there. We're not sure where that is. Everyone has a different circumstance. Again, some people have underlying health conditions that we're aware of. Some have a living situation where they're living with somebody that is susceptible, an older parent or grandparent. So we have all of these scenarios that we have to try to prepare for. And so that's why we have these ongoing conversations with our labor partners, which have been very positive. We want them comfortable. We want them to return. And we also know that we need to get our students back in class. And they know that. We've had very positive conversations going forward. Dr. Horvath, I don't know if you have anything else you want to add to that, but it was related to Donna Trickman's question, so I wanted to throw that. This is a tough balance that we have to try to find.
Yeah, no, thanks, Dr. Brady, and I appreciate the question as well. I'll just reiterate, we're working with our labor partners on this. They have been great partners, and they're watching numbers and helping us. And I'd say that every piece of any agreement that we come to, there's special note that we put in there that they're subject to negotiations. So we are ongoing. What I say, it's not just when we're at the table. We are communicating with all of our labor partners really on a daily basis on what these are. And we have a big session scheduled for this Friday again to talk about these things. But I will say that our folks do have, we meet with them in reasonable accommodations meetings. So we are being proactive there to know kind of who will be asking for a leave or who may be potentially asking for a leave, as well as reaching out to local universities to find not only credentialed substitutes, because that bar and that threshold is not that great, as Dr. Brady alluded to, is they're not necessarily a math specialist who can be a substitute. You need a degree and a substitute credential, and to pass the CBEST. So those aren't the folks that necessarily people would want in front of their students on a daily basis. However, we are reaching out to universities to try to get as many qualified subs and credentialed subs that we can, but we're also putting ads in papers, and you'll see on social media. Thanks, Rebecca. We're putting out in social media recruiting substitutes as well. Just as many, a lot of the surrounding districts are doing. So we're being proactive, we're doing what we can, and we'll continue to. And as I said, that ongoing dialogue will be there to see kind of who will be coming back and who will not, and how we can get the best and highest qualified person in front of our students, because they deserve it.
Thank you so much. Our next question is a little bit off topic, but very much on topic for returning to school. It's about construction. Doris Niku, would you please go ahead and unmute your microphone? And Dr. Breggy, would you please answer this question? Mr. Mead, feel free to jump in also.
Hi, good morning. It is actually related to when we do return. Oh, sorry, my alarm is going off. When we do return to school, I was wondering what the state of construction is at this time, because I've heard that you guys have speeded things up since the kids are not in school, and what progress you've made. And also I've heard that the tunneling has started under Beverly Hills High School a little ahead of schedule for the metro, and I wanted to see if you had more of a timeline on that.
Sure. So I'll start with the Metro question. That is absolutely true that Metro has already started their tunneling. If there was any good news about a pandemic, that it was that they started this in the area of where the high school is, where their staging area is, which is right where back by the parking lot, back by the Century City area, that line right there, right by the portables. So the good news about the pandemic is that they've already started that, and they're already going through that area, and we're monitoring that closely. As far as construction overall, construction has had its challenges. We are no different than any other organization. They have had areas where overall, I can tell you that we're on time and things are progressing well, but they've also had their struggles too. The superintendent for the job for Pro West on the high school site passed away because of COVID-19. And so that hits very close to home. And so that's something that happened just over a month ago. So they have had their challenges, and they follow the same procedures, OSHA procedures, and health screening procedures that we have. And there are times where they have COVID-19 cases where they have to adjust accordingly. However, B1, B2 will be opening, we believe, in the fall. And so we'll be celebrating that another time. But we believe that it's going well and it's on schedule, and that we believe will be open in the fall, and we'll give you details about that later. But that will help move out traffic, teachers from the village area. So the construction is exactly where we would hope that it would be, progressing really nicely, and it's so beautiful. I can't wait till you see it.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Dorothy Weiss. It's for Dr. Breggy. Dorothy, please go ahead and unmute your microphone.
Hi, Dr. Breggy, Mr.
Hi,
Mead,
Dorothy.
Rebecca. Thank you. Like I said, Dr. Breggy, in our council meeting, I just am so thankful and blown away by all that you, Mr. Mead, and everybody are doing. You wear so many hats now, even another one. I guess, my bias is coming from the medical community. There's more, and Dr. Breggy, I know we started to discuss this, but I think it warrants a little more discussion that the new, more aggressive variants from other countries are here and coming more to the United States, and especially in LA County. I follow daily at our Cedars emails, information, and it's very real and it's very concerning. And I guess the case rates, are very likely going to go up again. And I'm concerned about the reclosure of the schools. I think we discussed this back that, we didn't want to be bouncing kids and staff into hybrid, out of hybrid, back into virtual learning, because, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if there's 3 positive cases in our district, shuts down a school, thus shuts down the district. And can you please discuss that in a realistic level? I have a second question, Rebecca. I don't know if you want me to hold on and ask that later, or.
Yeah, do you mind? Sorry, Dorothy. We'll just unpack it one question at a time. I'm trying to get to a run, but pop it back in the chat and we'll come back to you.
Okay, I'll pop that in. So that's enough to start, Dr. Breggy.
So no, and thank you so much for the questions. And it's absolutely something that we have our eye on. It is definitely something that is concerning. I know to LA County that they are watching the variants. And you're right. We're also looking at, the most important thing that we have going for us right now is the continuity of the delivery of our education. As tedious as that is, as difficult as that is, we have not had, like many school districts, that stop and start. If we would have gone back to school right after Christmas break, we would have closed our schools 2 different times because of the number of COVID-19 cases that we have. Dorothy, you're absolutely right. If there's 3 or more cases, that's considered to be an outbreak, and you close your school if the 3 are in that school. And then the rule is that if 25% of your schools are closing for COVID-19 cases, the district closes. And so we are at that threshold because we have 4 schools, 4 campuses that we're running. And so one school is 25% of our school district. And so that is where that works, against us as far as one school. But, keep in mind, there are a number of there was at one point, we were very worried about just the cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting, because also what you keep in mind, it's not just a positive case. So when there's a positive case, if that person is working with someone else, there's potential then that those people that are in close proximity, then they're out as well. And I'll just give you one circumstance. One time there was somebody that had a positive COVID-19 case, and they were around 9 other people. And so we had 10 people at one time out. So it's complicated and it's really internal, and we're handling it, but there are a number of cases where it's not just somebody with a positive case, it's that if you're working with somebody else, we have to take that into consideration. And that's part of our protocol with our compliance COVID-19 team. So, but as far as the strain is concerned, it is something that LA County is aware of. As superintendents, we're aware. We've learned we have to pivot. We've been doing that with your support for almost a year. And we hope and pray that variant does not become a mitigating factor in our adjusted case rate, because it would be detrimental to start school and then have to stop and then put everybody back on a different schedule. So that's really tough for students. It's certainly tougher for our youngest learners, but it's really tough on everybody.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Paulette Storm. In relation to COVID testing for both staff and students, Dr. Bragi, would you mind please answering this? Paulette, please go ahead and unmute your microphone.
Hi, Paulette, are you there?
I might just read the question just because I'm watching the clock and I see that we're already almost 10 minutes over. Are the students and teaching staff going to be COVID tested?
So we have COVID testing already lined up for our staff. So we've done a run through with our staff. In Governor Newsom's plan, there are some pretty unrealistic expectations about testing for students and staff, and it's dependent on the adjusted case rate. But right now, it's the plan that he has in place that's being challenged is that it's twice a week, based on where we are with the adjusted case rate for our students and our staff. For our staff, it's a bit easier to handle because we have the insurance through the school district. COVID testing with our students becomes very, very different, and how that's actually managed at each school, the operational end of how that's done, how the paperwork insurance end of that is done. The state has given no plan at all on how to do that with our students. But we've looked at the potential numbers for those tests that would be the cost to the school district. And we're looking at over $400,000-$500,000 just for student testing.
Our next question comes from Mani about, she's wondering if Tim could please answer her question. Mani, would you please go ahead and unmute your microphone? I believe the internet dropped off, so Mr. Ellis was unfortunately kicked off, but he's back with us. Mani, go ahead.
Yes, hi, Mr. Ellis and Mr. Mead chimed in for you, which is great, but we just want an update if there's anything for sports. As we know, every day new schools are starting back locally, conditioning, and I know you always like to have something to add, and I'm sure everyone listening, if there's anything, that would be awesome. Thank you.
Good morning, Marnie. Thank you for the question. At the PTA meeting last week, I put a PowerPoint presentation on to kind of sort through and unpack how athletics can come back at this point in time. There's 5 different factors in terms of bringing athletics back. 1 is what tier are we in? 2, what season of sport is in, and what sports are allowed in that particular tier and season of sport. So as of right now, the CIF has canceled all fall playoffs and championships. So this fall season technically has been canceled by the CIF. They're moving forward to the spring sports. What they did do is they did say you could extend those seasons. So if you wanted to participate and play fall games in those sports that were canceled, you can do that on our own. The South Bay Athletic Association has gotten together. We meet again tomorrow morning and put together smaller scale schedules for those fall sports so that we can probably get some competition, so they will at least get something in for this year. Right now, Dr. Brady and I work daily in terms of talking about what we can bring back, what we cannot bring back. Our plan next week is to start back with our conditioning programs, but we're still in pods of 12 with 1 coach. The LA County Department of Public Health has not updated their youth sports protocol since the 22nd of October. And so we're still waiting for them as well to give us an update. And so we are always erring on the side of caution. I go back to Dr. Weiss's question there earlier, is that the last thing that we want to have happen is we put our kids in a position on the field in a conditioning group where all of a sudden now some kids get contracted the COVID-19 and we have to shut the entire school district down. And that's the last thing we want. We have protocols in place. I think back in October when we first started to do this, we had a big presentation. We are ready to go. And we're going to try to start bringing our sports back slowly but surely starting next week. With, again, social distancing, groups of 12. We have fields, everything, and fields marked off in certain areas for certain sports. We have gates assigned. And so we have all the protocols in place, but that's kind of our plan. The spring sports are scheduled to start in the middle of March with competition, provided the numbers stay where they're at and we get out of the tiers. The problem is in terms of some of the tiers, as of right now, football, wrestling, basketball, we have to be in the yellow tier before we can do any competitions with those sports. So we have to look at the season of sport, and then we have to look at what sport is allowed in whatever particular tier we're in. And I think Dr. Brady talked about it earlier in terms of the number of weeks it takes to get from one tier to the other. And let's say right now we are in the purple tier, and let's say our numbers drop below that magical number of 7. We can't immediately go from the purple tier to the yellow tier. We have to spend at least 3 weeks in each tier before we can move on. So that also has a bearing on what sports can come back, what we can do, and what is allowed. So we're looking at
Mr. Ellis. Daphna has also just popped in the chat. I hope you don't mind. I'm just going to read your question so Mr. Ellis can tack it right on. What
Sure.
about track kids?
Track kids are one of the sports. They're a spring sport, and they are in the purple tier that they're allowed to come back. Cross country track are allowed to come back. Track though is a spring sport, so it's a purple tier sport, but it's also in the spring. So that way, that track would start up in March and then run through the end of the school year.
Thank you. I'm going to wrap up with one final question. I want to acknowledge that we've got lots of teachers here today and thank them for their support. Also, all of our assistant principals are here. I see Dr. Hunt, I see Ms. Decatrell, I see Mr. Stewart. So thank you for being with us. Dr. Brady will give us a formal wrap up, but our final question, and Dorothy has allowed me to read this one, is how will you accommodate students who get ill and out for a period of time and or go into a 14-day quarantine due to exposure, thus not being able to attend in-person hybrid? Mr. Mead, please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, of all the concerns and challenges that we may face going forward, I'm actually least worried about that one, except for the kids' health. Our teachers have gotten really good at deploying distance learning and, supporting students, from a distance. So I actually think we're going to be okay with that. If there's some lab that a kid misses in that 2-week period, I'm sure there'll be an opportunity to make it up. If there's an assessment that has to be in class, I'm sure the kid can make it up. And the learning itself, depending on the kid's health, if he or she is healthy enough to watch on the computer, can remain pretty tethered to the class. So obviously we're going to need to be ready for that. But if there's anything that's going to keep me up at night, I don't think it's that. Our teachers have shown that they're pretty flexible and able to support from a distance. So I think we're good there.
Dr. Breggy, that's it. We got through all of them.
So I just want to take this opportunity. First of all, thank you for doing the moderating, Rebecca. That it's not an easy job to. There's 20 things that are going on at once, and I do want to not only thank our staff for being here today and being part of these conversations, but I do want to thank all of you very much for your support, your questions. It's not easy. We are getting hundreds of emails each week. And we do the best that we can to get back to you. We are working very well with what we have. We will continue to push. Behind the scenes, we do fight to get the information that we are deserved and that we're owed. And I meet all the time, weekly, several times a week with other superintendents in LA County. And just on a regular basis, and we are all struggling in many, many ways. We are fortunate than most school districts in LA County because we have a plan to return, and we've shared that with you. Most school districts do not have this. We have thought ahead. This is, again, a tribute to our teachers who are continuing to have the conversation with us at the table. We are so far ahead of our other school districts. And so I don't want to underestimate the work that has been done. From an operational perspective, Ms. Starkins and I were on a call just yesterday, and we had a school district calling saying, how are we supposed to take everybody's temperature without backlogging and keeping everybody up? We're done. We have a top of the line system that when our health screenings are in place, our students are going to walk in and not even realize they're going through our thermal scanners for temp. We have thought so far ahead, and a lot of this is behind the scenes, and we don't often. It's uncomfortable to look in to each other and say this has been some great work from the cabinet, from our building site administrators and our Board of Education. But as frustrating as this is for all of you, it is for us. But we continue to work night and day to ensure that when it's safe to go back and we have the information from the state and the county, that we will implement our procedures and they will be as seamless as possible.
Sorry, Dr. Brady, there's been one, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Sure. There's one last question that I think is a really, really important one that wraps it up. Please clarify, what currently does the state say is the adjusted case rate that will launch this return plan?
So right now in Governor Newsom's proposal, it is he's looking at it's only a TK through 6, and I've explained that we can't do 6th grade. If you look at the state proposal that doesn't address middle school or high school, it's 7. It's when you enter the red tier. So that has not changed. So we're still looking at the red tier is the definition of safe for according to Governor Newsom, he's saying 6th grade, but for our sake, it's middle school and high school has been silent. So the reopening is when we enter the red tier of 7 or less. So again, thank you for being here. As soon as we know information, we'll pass this on to you. Thank you for all of the work that you're doing at home. Rearranging your schedules at home. I continuously hear stories how difficult this is for managing your families at home. We are managing the best that we can here. Keep in mind, we are all educators, teachers, principals, and we didn't get into this job to conduct meetings like this or have classroom sessions via Zoom and the computer. All of us want to go back as quickly as possible when it's safe and return to the most normal schedule possible. And we are going to work very hard to get to that point. So thank you very much for being here today. Again, this has been recorded, so feel free to refer back to any of the information that was shared today. And for some of you that might be joining us for our elementary and our middle school town hall, we'll see you soon. Thanks, everybody.